Good evening, and welcome to the meeting of the North Penn School District's Board of School Directors, April 1st. Tonight is our regularly scheduled work session. This meeting is being videotaped for community cable channels. Individuals attending this meeting and intending to speak to the board should be aware that they're being videotaped. In order to meet the requirements of the Pennsylvania Sunshine Law, it is necessary to record the names of all citizens who speak to the board during the meeting. To assure compliance with this requirement, it is essential that those planning to address the board come to the microphone, state their name and address, and sign the audience of citizens logbook. Members of the audience are asked to limit their questions and comments. To allow time for all those who wish to speak to the board president may ask the individual to yield the microphone to the next speaker, and this is in reference to Board Policy 8340. Good evening. Before we start this meeting, can we do a pledge led by Mrs. Charnock? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, again, thank you. And we're going to start this presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Dietrich.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening we do have two presentations. The first one comes out of the Education Community Policy Committee, and it's a presentation regarding our special education plan, which is a part of our strategic planning. And with us this evening, we have Dr. Santoro leading a team here. We'll also have some other folks that will be doing some presenting too. So, Dr. Santoro, if you want to get started with us, please do.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Dietrich. Good evening to the school board members and members of the administration. Thank you for this opportunity this evening to present to you the special education plan. Along with me this evening, I have one of our supervisors, Francis Gardner, and also our manager of special education, Jenna Rufo. The purpose of this presentation is just to share with you what we will be forwarding on to PDE by May 1st, which is a 3-year plan that'll look at what we're doing in special education, what we've accomplished thus far, and what we will be doing from 2014 to 2017. So the contents on the plan, this is just a little piece of the information that we wanted to share. Reviewing the Penn data, which is the information from 2012, 2013. Also the North Penn School District Program Profile, strengths and highlights of the special education programs. We'll discuss a little bit about least restrictive environment, along with behavior supports, and then finally the special education personnel development, which will discuss our professional development for staff. I thought I would like to begin with just a little overview of special education and where we've been the last 50 years. So first, when we start out in 1961, we can see that President Kennedy created the President's Panel on Mental Retardation, and what that did is that gave federal aid to the states. Following that, in 1965, we had President Johnson, who signed the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which I'm sure that many of us are familiar with. And what that allowed was it expanded access to public education for students with disabilities. However, by the early 70s, we still only had a small number of students with disabilities being educated in public schools. And that led to 1975 to two very important federal laws that were enacted, and that's the Education of All Handicapped Children, known as EHA, and that, in quotes, that gave rights to public education for all children regardless of disability. And then the last powerful federal law is the one which is the Individuals with Disabilities Act, known as IDEA, and that requires states to ensure that all eligible children with disabilities receive a free and appropriate public education, which we call FAPE. So underneath there, we just break out a little bit more what it means to have a least restrictive environment and really what these guidelines in the federal law are required of all school districts to do in public schools. Least restrictive environment means students must be educated with their non-disabled peers to the maximum extent possible. State and federal laws require IEP teams to consider general education classroom settings first with supplementary aids and services before considering other restrictive placements. This piece of information here, when we submit our plan, we have to look back to the previous school year, and that was the child count from December 1st of 2012. It represents that as the LEA, we had over 13,000 students in the entire district, breaking it down to over 2,000 students in special education, which yielded a little over 16% of students in special ed. And then you can see all the disability categories listed there. If we glean down a little bit more towards the bottom, we can see that the majority of our students, 44%, have specific learning disabilities, and that really pertains to a reading disability or a math disability. The next report or chart here really reflects special education program profile for this current year. And what we did here is we just broke down the different disability categories, and just to show you by level, elementary, middle, high, and at Northbridge, how many teachers we had teaching students in those disability categories. So you can see at the elementary level, we have 36 teachers throughout the 13 elementary buildings supporting students in learning support in classrooms, or in learning support within the regular ed classroom where they would be pushing in. And also to call to note, 17 classrooms of autistic support students we have across the elementary level.
One of the nice things that we got to do when we were putting together this plan was really gather a group of representatives. We took special ed administrators, regular ed administrators, principals, parents, regular education teachers, and special education teachers, and we had a chance to reflect on what our strengths were as a district regarding our special ed programs. So really what we came up with, the strengths that we want to continue focusing on and that we're looking to build upon, is really a focus on inclusion, and we've really embraced an inclusive philosophy in the district, believing that we have high expectations for all of our students and giving them opportunities to experience all of the rich curriculum and opportunities that North Penn has to offer. We also looked at increasing inclusion, so the membership participation and learning program is something that Frances, Dr. Garner, is going to speak to you a little bit now, so I'm going to turn that over to her.
Thank you. Least restrictive environment is when we need to consider, as Dr. Santor had mentioned, educating students with disabilities in the regular education environment as much as possible. So when we look at least restrictive environment for our students, we need to ensure that they're in regular ed and what are the supports that we need to provide to them in order for them to be successful in those environments. One of the initiatives that we took on several years ago at the elementary level was membership participation and learning. Initially, it was Include Me from the Start, from the state level. And we were able to provide students with severe complex support needs the ability to participate in the general education curriculum throughout their school day. That certainly entailed a lot of staff training, a lot of building capacity, having teachers and staff understand the intricacies of students with disabilities and how they can participate in an inclusion model. At the secondary level, we have also included co-teaching as one of the instructional models for students with disabilities. Additional areas that we've improved for least restrictive environment include this year, Inglewood Elementary School is fully inclusive, meaning that 100% of their students are included in the regular education environment for the majority of their school day. Gwinnett Elementary School is making great strides as well towards inclusive practices. Penndale Middle School has also embraced this philosophy. We have an inclusion specialist that has also worked with Gwinnett in order to provide our students with supports in the regular education environment. That was funded through a grant for several years, and so we are continuing to pursue that. Additionally, at the high school, there's a staff member who has stepped up to basically be an inclusion specialist, in essence, to provide students at the high school level as well with the level of support that they need to be successful in the regular education classroom.
When we're talking about least restrictive environment, we're talking about how do we include students in our schools in the regular education classroom, but we're also looking at how do we keep all of our North Penn students, or as many as we can, within North Penn, and giving them opportunity to participate with their non-disabled peers in their home schools and in their communities, rather than having them go off to a private school or an intermediate unit classroom. So there's an array of services, but really our goal is that we can provide service for those students internally and build our capacity to do that. The one program that I really wanted to highlight tonight is something that I'm very personally passionate about, and it's our multiple disabilities support program. We have multiple disabilities support at Penfield Middle School and at North Penn High School. And this is something that's for students who have very intensive needs, students who may be medically fragile. Some have G-tubes where they receive their feeding through tubes. They're nonverbal, non-ambulatory, and we have been able to provide programming for these students within our district, which I think is really a testament to our teachers, to our philosophy that we have here, that every student really does count and matter. For these students, we use assistive technology, so teaching them how that they can either use a switch that they touch with their hand to speak, or some of them use eye gaze machines, and really providing supports with those students. And for me personally, I mentioned I was personally passionate about it. I have a sibling who has multiple disabilities, and when she was growing up, she didn't have that opportunity to be participating in her home school and community. So it's just very important for us that we really are looking at all of our students, and as we continue with our special ed plan moving forward and building supports, looking at where are our needs, where students are being served and consistently placed in other programs, and how can we better support them internally.
When we're also looking at trends in terms of data, the state requires us to report on indicator 5, which is basically what percentage of students are participating in what environments throughout their school day. So this is the data chart that you will see from 2012 and 2013. The 2012 data is the data we received from the state report. The 2013 data is our preliminary data. It hasn't officially been released to the state, from the state. But you'll see that we have made significant efforts in including our students in the regular education environment. Our elementary numbers have jumped significantly, which is just, again, as Jenna had spoken about, our testament to our teachers and everybody working collaboratively together to support our students with disabilities.
Did you want to? Okay. All right. For our behavior supports, we are really looking at providing a full, again, continuum of services so that we can maintain students within the district with the appropriate supports. We have always had emotional support at the elementary level, and we've recently really focused on expanding that at secondary and providing stronger supports there. At Penndale Middle School, we established an emotional support program for students who have more behavior needs. Whereas at the high school level, we have two different distinctions. We have one program that we started about 2.5 years ago we call Graduation Mentorship, which is a supplemental emotional support class. The students meet one period every day in the morning with a special ed teacher where they focus on goal setting, motivation, really just trying to connect and engage with these students. And those are our students who we consider most at risk. So trying to put preventive measures in place so that they're successfully completing school and transitioning to a productive and appropriate post-secondary outcome. We also started a class at the high school just this year for students who have anxiety and depression, and that's something new. That's either a supplemental class where students can kind of float in and out of, or we do have some students who are there full-time. And these are students who may have been hospitalized for mental health issues or have those anxiety and depression diagnoses that we're trying to support through a mental health counselor in school, a dedicated teacher, and really trying to almost shrink the size of our high school for them because such a large environment for a student that has anxiety, can be further anxiety producing. So doing what we can to provide those supports to make them feel comfortable.
Emotional disturbance and autistic support. Okay. And the last bulleted item there, because we wanted to support our students as much as possible, we know that when working with students who have anxiety and depression, we needed to make sure that we had counselors that were trained in mental health services. So this year we were able to have a full-time counselor up at the high school to provide group therapy to students as well as individual therapy. And also we were able to work with Lakeside and have some supports put into the middle schools where we had some itinerant level of students that had emotional disturbance. So when we were building this plan for this current school year, when we added the addition of the anxiety and depression class, we knew that in order to be successful, we had to really support the kids, and the mental health component was very important. So now the last piece of this is just going through the professional development plan for the next 3 years, how we envision it to work into these different sections that are required by the Department of Education. So you can see there a list of what we had to address, and the first area was autism. The second area is behavior support, paraprofessional, reading, and transition. Okay, go to autism. Where's the clicker? Oh, no child left behind. Okay, all right. Yeah, no child left behind. So the first piece of professional development that I just want to touch on, we have a large number of students in the district that do have autism at various levels, some itinerant, some supplemental, some full-time. And so we really felt it was necessary to put a survey out to all professional staff just to get their needs as professionals, what they felt would be best to serve them to be better teachers, better paraprofessionals working with our students. So about 225 professionals responded, which I think was a pretty good response. And from that, we yielded, these are the areas that we want to address in professional development. We want to work on some professional development workshops for behavior, social skills, academics, their role as professionals, and assistive technology. And assistive technology is when students, we need to determine whether they need devices to be able to access the curriculum in the classroom, and that's where we would call in a team of people to discuss that. Okay. And then I just have listed there some of the topics that we came up with. And once again, this is not just professional development for the regular ed teachers, but also for the special ed teachers, or a combination. Profile of autism, students with autism, also looking at core instruction in reading and math in the regular ed classroom, overview of the FBA, which is the functional behavior assessment, and building positive behavior support plans with fidelity, teaching social skills across all settings, and lastly, assistive technology, the what, why, and when. What is it, why we need it, and when should we implement it?
In order for us to support students behaviorally, we have SPA training, and unfortunately, it's not us going to the spa and enjoying ourselves, but SPA stands for Safe and Positive Approaches. It's a technique or a program really designed by the Devereaux Foundation and that school. What they do is they have a prescribed training program for de-escalation techniques, personal intervention strategies, and restraints if necessary. And so currently, we actually have a plan in place, and we've been working through training all relevant staff members who need this particular training for whether they need to do de-escalation or even possibly restrain a child. We have 4 district staff members who are trained to provide this training to the district. They get recertified every year by going to Devereaux to renew their certification. Then they come back and do turnaround training. And anybody who has not ever received SPA training receives a 2-day training, and then anybody who has been certified already will come back once a year for a recertification. In addition to teachers, we also train paraprofessionals, nurses, school security. We also have extended school year staff who are trained in this technique, and building administrators are also trained as necessary.
For our paraprofessionals in North Penn, those are our special ed instructional assistants who work with students with disabilities. They are required to receive 20 hours per year of professional development or training. We do provide that for the paraprofessionals. This year we hosted a paraprofessional training fair with Montgomery County Intermediate Unit, where we had other school districts that had participated as well. And some of the topics that we've dealt with or that we've trained paraprofessionals on are listed below. And as part of our plan, we'll continue to do that and continue to work with the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit and Patan to provide that. For reading, we have also really focused on building some very strong research-based interventions and operating under the philosophy that the stronger our regular ed programs are, the stronger our special ed programs are. So we have trained 55 teachers, both regular ed and special ed, in a very intensive decoding intervention. Decoding is really the phonics-based and learning how to sound out words. These teachers have participated in an initial 3-day training, an online course, and 60 practicum lessons with an individual student. So it's a very intensive training. And also we have 7 teachers that are going through level 2 training to serve as additional resources so that we can build capacity within the district and do not need to continue using other resources to provide that professional development. For our comprehension strategies, we also have really focused on, again, implementing a program with Fidelity and the research-based programming. So we this year had, and most of this was funded through the Keystones to Opportunities grant, 25 professional development coaching days where we've had people that are working in the classroom with the teachers to provide that job-embedded professional development, as well as 6 half-day seminars. And again, we're also training teachers to become instructional specialists with this, so as we move forward with our special ed plan, that we have the resources within the district. At the elementary level, teachers are also going to be receiving training in the leveled literacy intervention, which our reading specialists are already trained on, but we also wanted to expand that to special ed. And finally, our transition training is something that we're also very proud of in the training that we provide for students to support them with their post-secondary goals, be it attaining employment or going on to college. We have several levels of transition training at the high school and the middle schools. Our job exploration program is for students who get maybe just a few periods per week where they're learning different jobs or within our district, maybe working in the libraries or helping with filing. And those are our students who have more intensive disabilities or intellectual disabilities. As they progress through the years, they move on to job training, which is every afternoon they would get some type of work experience. And then the goal is really to have them get a paid experience by the time that they're leaving here by participating in career or work study. We also have travel training for these students. So a barrier to employment is if you don't have a means to get there. So for students that probably won't be learning how to drive because of their disabilities, we're working with them on using public transportation. We also have post-12 classes for our students that do remain until they're 21 to address their areas of need in reading and math, but also in independent living skills. And we've gone through some intensive professional development this year with Montgomery County Intermediate Unit in terms of making sure that our IEPs or our documents are really reflecting all of the great things that we're doing with transition.
So we thought we would finish this evening with a note from a former student to talk about transition. And this is a letter that the student wrote to his teachers, and I'm not going to read it to you, but you can see that this makes us all feel really good knowing that transition is working. And this student just sharing that he got a full-time job and how excited he is, and he wanted to make sure that he reached out and discussed to his teachers and let them know, and also that he's thinking about them. So I think this is just really a nice way to end this presentation. This is all the fine work that we do in all of our schools, and also as we're all advocates for all of our students that have special needs. Thank you.
Are there any questions for any of our presenters this evening?
Under STA training, I happen to see security guards going to get 1 day of training. 'Cause usually they're the first ones to be able to handle this. Are they going to be certified? They just show up? Are they going to have a pat saying, a teacher's looking for this pat saying he's not trained, but he or she is trained? Is there a way to identify these? 'Cause sometimes security guards are out. We have alternative replacements for people that, temporaries once in a while.
That's a good question. Last summer, we started the training with the security officers at the high school, and we had that built into the schedule, so they are all trained and they are all certified in SPA, so they all have certificates. And we made sure that we had that because of the fact, working with children that have emotional disturbance and also students who may have some concerns in our autistic classes at the high school. So they do have training.
Thank you.
Betty, over the years, I've seen numerous special ed plan presentations, and this is one of the nicest ones I've seen. It's very informative. It's got a lot of usable information. Can we make sure that's posted on the school website so it's available?
Yes, I do. I have it on the school website. I posted it March 13th. It's under quick links, and it's the first one, special education plan.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Finish what you said.
I also have, I can give you hard copies if you would like hard copies as well.
And the other thing is the full plan that will be on the agenda for approval next week at the action meeting is also posted on the website for public
Right.
comment right now.
Right. Okay.
Your reputation, first off, North Penn's reputation in special education is highly known. First of all, it's well-known and it's highly respected, but your people add a lot to that, and I'd just like to say that's That's a very indicative of how you run your department and your people around you, so thank you.
Thank you. It takes a great team, and I have a great team. Thank you.
We do have a great team, starting with the administrative team, through teachers, through instructional assistants, and great work is being done by our special education staff and all of our regular education teachers working with our special education students also. So kudos to all involved, just tremendous work being done.
I just wanted to add to the comments, as the ECP committee was given this presentation at our last meeting, and I made the comment about how passionate and enthusiastic this group is about what they do and how they feel about providing an opportunity for all of our children, and I commend you. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions, then this will then go to the full board action meeting next week and be voted upon there, and then if that is approved, it'll go to the state then to meet the strategic plan requirement for special education.
Before we move on to the next Safe Schools report, I wanted the public to know we came in late because we had an executive session of the full board to discuss matters of personnel, negotiations, and real estate. So that's why we came in late, guys, sorry. I wanted to mention that, so.
Thank you. Safe Schools is presenting this evening a presentation on secure entrances, and we have Mr. Strobel to lead that presentation.
I'm hoping that, hoping that we'll have a PowerPoint coming up there.
Did it mute? AV mute? The light's still on, so. Somebody got a control?
There you go. Yeah, it's one of the other, it's the other PowerPoint. Oh, there you go, right there. Yep.
I don't know, Mr. Strobel, I always ask, who knows more about about technology, the students or the adults? And here we have a student again that's gonna bail us out.
There's no doubt. So we were asked, the administration was asked to look at what could make our schools more secure. And we've come up with some ideas about secure vestibules in buildings that don't have them just yet. As far as safety, all of our elementary schools have locked doors. We have buzz-in systems. We have the Raptor visitor management systems. And we have procedures in place to allow students to access the schools freely. And we also have procedures in place to make sure that visitors are treated the way they need to be and that they check in, provide ID, go through the Raptor visitor management program, and receive a badge before they go out into the schools. During renovations here at North Penn, we've evolved to include secure vestibules in many of the more recent projects. And while we have safe practices in place at the schools, we're looking at these particular 6 schools to provide more secure physical entry for visitors, similar to some of the other schools that have already been done. Bridle Path, Gwinnett Square, and Walton Farm are sister schools. They all have similar floor plans built in the early 90s. The proposal for these schools is to modify the school entrance so that visitors have to go directly into the office instead of into the lobby. And then they're sent out into the lobby after they go through that whole process with Raptor and get a badge. So this may be a little bit hard to see from back there in the audience, but we are looking to, normally when children come in, they come in the main door and go right through the second set on both of these doors. Parents come in, visitors come in this door, and they buzz in here, and then they can either go into the cafeteria in 2 places, in the gym, out the hallway, whatever, or go into the office, and we hope that they go into the office. In this proposal, what we want to do is put this door that we've shown here in so that they can get buzzed into the office, they can do their Raptor visitor management, get their badge, and then they can go out into the building if that's what we need to do for that person. They may just be in the office for other reasons. So all 3 of those schools have that same configuration, and that's what we were talking about for those 3. Knapp was renovated in 1999. just after Columbine. But at that time, there was no discussion about secure vestibules and those kinds of things. A buzz-in system and a teacher swipe card has been installed there in the last year. The proposal here is to swap the location of the main office with the health suite and make some renovations in both places because we need a bathroom in the health suite and we need a principal's office on the other side because the existing health suite is not set up for enough room for a principal's office right now. The addition of the principal's office will leave the old principal's office open for other uses, conferences, small groups, or itinerants. And the mailroom could be used more as a workroom, and we have a copier which is sitting in the hallway outside of that room that we could put in there and use that space better. The existing office is this area here. Where it says health suite is where the secretaries are. The principal's in this small room, and then there's a little, what they call a consult room for the health suite when it changes, if it changes. That's a, right now there's PSSA stuff in there. There's tables in there for a conference kind of space. This grayed out area here is outside. This is an exit door, and it would continue to be an exit door, but there would be a vestibule created here where they could come into a window, talk to the secretary in the office. If they're appropriately there, they would be buzzed into this area where they could do the Raptor at a counter right here. We have 2 secretary desks, we have mailboxes and an area for the secretaries and teachers to work. And then we would add a principal's office here in the lobby. The lobby is this large area. Principal's office would be right there. Any questions on that one? Oak Park is our 5th school here. It was renovated in 2002, and at that time we did talk about a secure vestibule. We put doors in the main entrance way. However, on both sides of the entranceway were classrooms that needed to go through that lobby constantly during the day when they're moving to specials, when they're moving to lunch, gym, library, the art room, the music room. They're moving back and forth through that area. And we would have to figure out how to get those doors to lock but yet be open for kids. The proposal here is to move the main entrance to the current art room, which is in the front of the building. We would do some work with the vestibule there and have visitors enter the office directly from the new vestibule. The changes at Oak Park will allow for a new conference room. Currently, conferences are held in the principal's office, along with the principal sometimes. And sometimes the principal has to go find another space so they can do the conference in his room. New single occupant lavatory will be created for the public so that visitors won't be mixing with the lavatories meant for students. And the current office is right here. This is the main entrance, one double door there, and you go up to the counter to go through the visitor management system and get your badge and sign in. And then you can either go here and out to the school or to the art room or whatever. We're proposing moving the office here at the front where there is another door already, and we would place a new vestibule there, be able to buzz people into the office where the secretaries are. Mailboxes are here. We have the vault that's over here now. We can move over there. Principal's office, conference room. And the old office would become a classroom, and we would put a toilet room in that one as well. In this building, it was built with a number of double classrooms, 2 kindergarten classrooms. These 2 rooms were two rooms with a bathroom in between. They weren't attached to the rest of the building. There were no walls, no hallways. They had to go outside to go to the cafeteria. They had to go outside to get to the gymnasium. So that's all been rectified, but the bathrooms still exist in these locations where the double classrooms are. You can see another one right up there at the edge for the 2 classrooms up there. So we figured we would have an office bathroom, a music room bathroom, and a public bathroom right up front. in this scenario. And lastly, Gwen Noor was renovated in 2004. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of discussion about secure vestibules either. However, when we did that building, we did put the first swipe card access in our buildings at Gwen Noor, along with a buzz-in later on. The proposal here is to move the main office and current lobby to the current lobby and create a new secure vestibule to have visitors enter the office directly. And it's very similar to the General Nash lobby that we did when we did the renovations there a couple years ago. The changes made at Gwen Noor will allow for new spaces, several of them for small groups. The principal's office is one area. There was a workroom there. That's another area. And we're also, there's a big wall in front of the main lobby, and there's little slits cut in it so that you can't really see out into the parking lot. So we're going to take that down and be able to see better out of the front of the building. Right now, this area right here is walled off. And there's a little garden in there and a little recessed area. We'd like to fill that in and put a concrete path here to a waiting room. That's the secure vestibule, where they go in, they talk to the secretaries in the office through the window. If they're buzzed in, they're buzzed into the office, or they're buzzed out to the school after they've signed in. Principal's office is right now a faculty room that runs right about here in that area. You may have seen something in the paper about a wall that was being done in the lobby, and that wall is right here. It's from this end down to there, and will not be there after this is done, if it's done. The current office is here, and we're proposing moving the faculty room up there. This is that office that would be available after the principal moves here, and another workspace right in there for other small type groups. Mrs. McHugh and I have worked on this, and I don't know, Cheryl, if you have something you want to say about the plans. We've worked with all the principals, and they think it's all workable.
I think just as you've highlighted, Mr. Strobel, it represents first and foremost the safety of our students in mind, and I'm thankful to our Safe Schools Committee for recognizing the need to do this commensurate with our other elementary buildings. But additionally, Mr. Strobel's also referenced for the board and our public the idea that some of these spaces which are going to be redesigned will be then utilized for small group instruction, which is a growing need as a result of our RTI initiative and philosophy within the district. Additionally, the architect's plan really does a nice job in the redesign to incorporate some organizational efficiencies and great use of space in our offices to allow for safe traffic flow patterns as people are coming and going, and allowing our students to remain safe at all times. So just to accent those things that Mr. Strobel referenced. Thank you.
The estimated costs are there, 1.9 million total. We think we can do it for a little bit less than that because Bridal, Gwinnett, and Walton, I think we can do in-house with our staff and help save some of the labor there. Any questions?
Okay, questions for Mr. Strobel?
What's the time frame?
Well, we'd start this summer. We would hope to finish in the summer. I think the three sister schools are definitely doable. The others may take a little longer, but we can work that out within the buildings.
You have to get township approval for some of those changes,
yeah.
so you have to go through the development process with them.
It wouldn't be a land development process, but we'd have to get permits.
Is this part of the county's recommendations in terms of safe schools?
I don't know if the county's made the recommendation for these, no. Safe Schools asked us to look at things like this that we could do to better protect our students and our staff.
Josie, I guess what we're looking at is the other schools have the vestibules, and this way somebody can go right in. And we've seen in the past year and a half, well, since January a year ago, where people just manage to either shoot their way in or go right in.
Without being checked in?
And this
Not in
makes
North
it a
Penn.
little more secure. it's about the best we can do, I think. So, somebody mentioned to me, well, do you need cops to look at it or something like that? And I just think, that, I don't want to say we're smart enough, but I think we should do what we have to do to make the schools as safe as we can. And I just think this approach, because this is half the schools. The other schools have that vestibule, like York Avenue. You go in, you're forced to go to the right. In the morning, the doors open up, the kids can go straight in. But there, once those doors are unlocked, you're forced to go into the principal, and they have a glass enclosure that they can see you.
Saw that in Nash. Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We really appreciate Mr. Strobel doing this, because a year ago, January, we had our symposium on safety. And these are some of the things that we talked about. And of course, we knew that we were going to get everything fixed in a year or 2 years. And Mr. O'Donnell, took the time to go to every building and look at the vestibules. I've gone to several. And 3 of those I was very concerned about. And we've talked about it at Safe Schools. We didn't know what the cost was going to be. And what is so nice is that they've been able to make the buildings really more usable by making some of the spaces better for people. So I just think this is something that we really need to do.
The $1.9 million that we don't have, we have to borrow. We talked about doing multiple borrowings, multiple years for bank qualified over the Hatfield project. We may have to expand that to get this money. So there'll be a financial impact in our budget. We haven't actually estimated what that'll be just yet. I don't think we tried last night, but I don't think we figured out what it was gonna be exactly. But there is a cost to it to cover $2 million. We don't have $2 million, so we have to go out and get it. Any other questions for this issue? Do we have support to move these things forward? I'd like to take public comment next. Anybody from the public like to speak to the board, please, now is your time. Please step forward and ask any questions about tonight's proposal or anything else on your mind.
Good evening. My name is William Patchell. I live at 404 Bonnie Lane, Lansdale, and had 2 children go through the district. Very satisfied. And tonight I want to talk about the North Penn School District and its relationships with its health insurance. As you know, the Affordable Medical Care Act is now law. Those who have not gotten insurance are breaking the law. They need to get insurance. Does the district provide coverage which is determined by this law to be gold-plated? As you know, in a few years, there will be a penalty applied to this type of coverage, as high as 40%. I don't know where we are on that. Does anybody have where are we on our coverage in relationship to what is deemed as adequate by the Affordable Medical Care Act?
Yeah, we could expand on that if you want to. We've been in negotiations and discussing these matters for quite some time.
Okay. And I brought to the board's attention that according to this act, that when you have coverage and the spouse is employed in another area, they cannot be on our policy. They need to go to their employer's policy. You can't be on both. I believe that's a law. Does anybody know about that?
Well, I don't think it could be double covered anyway.
Okay, I'm just
There's
saying
the
is,
issue over which, because the law states which one applies to the person
Yeah,
who has the birthday
yes.
first, so you couldn't be doing it.
So I
You
was-
may be covered by both, that doesn't mean you can use both. I think that's the issue.
okay, I think in some situations, the employers, my wife was on my policy. I have personal choice, which is, wow, really pretty good. She had to leave my policy because she was working with Harleysville Bank, and her coverage now, well, she'll get it when she retires, but it's okay, but it's certainly not personal choice. I have no copay, so I'm very fortunate. So has the district removed or informed some of the spouses that they would no longer be on this policy, that they needed to go to their?
We are required by law to negotiate those things with our labor unions.
Okay, so they are bringing that up in the negotiations?
We have those issues being addressed
Okay.
in our issues, yeah,
And,
in our list of proposals.
Now that the Affordable Medical Care is law, how many students do not have health insurance? You either have to have CHIPS or you're on your parents' policy. Now, I think there's 10,000 students. I would like to know how many students do you think really have no coverage? Does anybody really know or keep track of that?
I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that question.
Okay.
I have to refer to
So
somebody
you
else.
have to identify these children by their parents' negligence or willful neglect
Well,
have
we
not
collect-
gotten.
We collect student information, which does
Okay.
include requests of information about the insurance coverage
What
and other things.
I'm
like that.
tying this in, without health insurance, to play any sport is foolish. Our school needs to find out who has coverage. The school sports policy is an accident policy. It's not health insurance. It terminates after 5 years of an accident. Without having medical coverage that is real medical coverage that continue on for, past 5 years, I think that's very, very important to identify, oh, you want to play basketball? You have coverage? You need to have coverage. It's irresponsible to let students continue to play without adequate and full medical coverage with a reasonable deductible, because when I'm out and about, I've asked people, did you get coverage? Nah, I'm not going to get it. I can't deal with it. It's too much money. How do you get it? I don't. So they have 6 million people signed up. I believe that the number was in the United States. There are about 50 million people that don't have coverage. So this is going to be an ongoing problem. I think it needs to be addressed. The students that don't have coverage need to be identified and informed. You need to talk to your parents, or you need to get CHIPS. You need to get coverage. But you're not going to play football, not going to play basketball, not going to do any sports until you can prove to me that you have adequate medical coverage. My son in college, you have to prove that you have full medical coverage to attend, or you can't go. And that's the rules of the college. So this is the real world and what's being applied.
Bill?
Yes.
Diane? Kurt? I seem to remember when my daughter was playing sports that she had to sign a permission slip, and we had to say she had insurances, that she was covered. It's been a long time,
I'd have to check on that, Frank, to be perfectly honest with you. I can check on that, but I don't know
but
the
I
answer
know the
off the
parents
top
have
of
to
my
sign
head.
off. I seem to remember,
Okay.
a long time ago.
When you file your income tax next year, you will need to put, in addition to your Social Security number, you will need to identify as when you do your auto insurance, this is the name of the carrier, this is my number of my policy. You will have to prove. So to have a parent say, oh, yes,
I just had to check a box and that was it. Said, do you have insurance? Yes.
No, you need to prove to me when you apply to participate in a sport, you will give me a copy of your policy and what it entails and whether it is in agreement with the Affordable Medical Care Act. You need to have proper coverage. I know people do the ostrich thing. Oh, well, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe April, I guess I'll look at it. You can't operate in a society where millions of people decide, I don't think I want to do it. That's not acceptable. Okay, not to mention that the students should have seen, this ties in that when a kid comes and he doesn't have medical coverage, he's going to come to school. Okay, well, why didn't you see a doctor? Well, I couldn't go. It cost an awful lot of money, and I just couldn't go. So I had to go to school, so now I'm in school, and I'm giving everybody else the problem. If they had medical coverage, they'd go to the doctor, they'd maybe stay home, instead of mingling around with the general population, infecting other people. Having no medical insurance is not an acceptable way to operate in the environment that we have. Okay, our senior citizens will be watching the negotiations very closely. I know this is a difficult time. I know that the tax revenue, which was kind of optimistic, had since fallen off a little bit. I don't know how the real estate's going to be. I see that the that might become more challenged if the rates were to go up. So as far as the money from the tax receipts in that area, I really don't know what the tax receipts are, but I think we're going to have a problem. And I want you to remember that the senior citizens, they pulled this wagon a long time. And I know that they want to have all these wonderful things, the secure systems. You say 1.9 million? Man, that's an awful lot of money. That's an awful lot of money at labor rates, which I think are a little, that's a whole nother area with Davis-Bacon and the prevailing wage. That's a whole nother area that it's being dealt with by the state, okay? The senior citizens are really concerned about the taxes. I mean, I live in Montgomery Township. They run a pretty tight ship in Montgomery Township, and that's one of the reasons why I moved there. I think that when we negotiate, you have to tell the employees or the people who you're dealing with, look, you got a nice pension. A lot of people here don't even have a pension. You really got a nice medical program. A lot of people don't have any medical. The people that did sign up for the medical, affordable medical, oh yeah, my premium's about $850 a month. Oh, I'll get the subsidy, yeah, next April. When I get into my income tax, I got to fork over $840 I didn't have before. So that's why people are getting a little upset about this. So when you negotiate, I want you to be incredibly mindful. Wow, we have all types of people here. The children are very important, but every senior citizen, I'm telling you, is just as important as any kid that's got a whole bunch of AP courses. I am just as important a citizen as anybody else here. I don't care what age they are. We're all equal. And I need to be feeling that negotiations are also being mindful of what the taxpayers, and especially the senior citizens, we just don't have a whole lot of resources. They're finite, and we have a lot of costs going up. Anybody bought heating oil lately? Almost $4 a gallon. When you call up, you get 150 gallon. That's about $500. That's an awful lot of money. Gasoline at almost $4 a gallon. That's all I have to say about that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, we have a consensus to move these issues forward at this point?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move it.
Motion to adjourn, too.
Motion to adjourn.
You bet.
All those in favor?
Aye.